Hey guys, welcome back. So now we are getting back into Al Ewing and Joe Bennett's Immortal Hulk, of which we are now 46 slaps in, bro. Like every issue has been hitting. But with Joe Fixit and the Savage Hulk making their way back to the land of the living from the below place, it's here where they have a couple of rematches to attend to. So let's talk about it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get your spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top so you can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so jumping back in and continuing to where at this time, Joe Fixit has just returned from the below place with Savage Hulk back into Banner's body, but with the twist of cosmic energy surging through his veins, but also with the gains that we haven't seen in months. So thanks to Joe, the Hulk has a hulking stature again, and he's ready to take his turn on the UFOs. And in the case of the UFOs, like they were only still here with the body of Banner because they were still waiting another 15 minutes for Gyrich to send his people and come collect. But before we go into Joe's rematch, we first jump over to Shadow Base Site G, because at this time where we have Doc Samson Sasquatch, Jackie McGee, Puck, Shaman, and Dr. McGowan, and they're standing over where Doc Samson's body was last seen, and initially Puck makes the assumption that the leader has come back and taken his body, and with hearing this, Leonard's like, no, it was Walter Langowski, the original Sasquatch, who's come back and taken his body and just ran off with it. And Jackie asks him like how could he be sure, and Doc Samson responds like it's just a hunch, like he doesn't know for a fact like he's seen it, but it almost seems as if he can feel a connection to Walter with them both returning from the below place and swapping bodies. But also with them seeing this, like Shaman mentions with them being in this quasi-magical territory, that important hints and hunches will come to them, and with saying this he reaches for his radio and Dr. McGowan's kind of like, what is that? And he's like, it's a radio. But also when he pulls out the radio, like Puck asks him again like if he's gonna stick around, but like Shaman had mentioned before, he's only here to help his former teammate Walter Langowski, and aside from that he has his teaching position and his medical practices to get back to, so for those reasons he may be in and out because he has other responsibilities and obligations. But when he turns on the radio he hears it cut in and out with news breaks about a battle in Manhattan with law enforcers, but then also a statement from Gyrich saying that the Hulk had been secured by the UFOs. But with them hearing like bits and pieces of these breaking news announcements, they initially hear about the Hulk's encounter with police in New York, but with hearing this in the radio cutting in and out, they miss the details of the Hulk being quote-unquote secured in New Jersey, which is where the fight moved to. But with the radio breaking in and out, they believe all of this has happened in New York. And so with hearing this, like with believing that this is the current state that Bruce is in, Dr. McGowan tells them that the Hulk is gonna need help, and Shaman lets them know like he can't get involved, he has to get back, and Puck's kinda like that's cool because he's done plenty with helping Rick and Del Fry, who are still merged, but Shaman was at least able to ease their pain. But also it's here where Rick Jones chimes in, and even with him trying to speak here, like it's hard for him to think separate thoughts from Del Fry while they're still in this merged state. But when Rick chimes in, he tells them like we have to help Bruce. He's my friend, he saved me, so I save him, always. And he's kind of begging these guys to help him and go with him to New York to help Bruce. So Puck is then like, let's take a vote, and it's unanimous with the exception of Shaman, who's like, I got better things to do. But then also the case of Jackie, who's hesitant and likely because of her new powers, but she agrees to go because it's where the story is and it's also where they'll find answers. But then from here, jumping over to New Jersey, where at this time Joe Fixit is getting his turn and he's like, alright, who first? And when he says this, Ironclad is the first to run up because before, when Gyrich had sent them in to fight the Hulk, and Ironclad had only seen like this scrawny Hulk who they had beat down and taken out, like Ironclad was disappointed, and he feels like now, like with facing the Hulk where he's closer to his usual hulking size, like this will be the fight that he expected to begin with. But when he steps up and throws the first punch, like Joe just breaks his hand effortlessly. And when this happens, Joe's like, you know what, I've always wondered, like are you metal all the way through, or are you just a hard shell with some squishy organs inside? And when Joe grabs his head and gets to figuring it out, the rest of the team is just like, oh my god. And when this happens, like X-Ray, he's like, first of all, like Vector, you do something, because X-Ray had already hit him with his cosmic rays, and that's what got them here. So because of that, he just goes behind Vector like, dude, get in there, man. And with Vector being pushed into the fight, like he tries to like say it with confidence, like he's kind of like, I got this. So he knocks back Joe just to get him off of Ironclad, who at this point is throwing up who knows what after having his head squeezed like an orange to where his brain's probably poured in his stomach. But I'm no doctor, don't listen to me. But with Vector knocking Joe back and telling Vapor to turn into some type of anesthetic to put him to sleep or to go over and help Ironclad, And she's just like, you know what, bump all that, and she turns into sulfuric acid gas going into the Hulk's nostrils, but he then just inhales the rest of her willingly. Like, he just takes this huge hit and he holds it. And Vector points out that is the atmosphere of Venus that he has just inhaled. And he's kind of like, just give it time, it'll sink in, it'll do something. But then Joe goes over and he exhales vapor in the form of sulfuric acid gas in the face of Vector. And when this happens, Vapor, she tries to switch to alkali to neutralize the burn like as quick as possible. But in response, Vector hits Joe super hard, sending him all the way back to New York, telling the Hulk to leave them alone, which for one reminds me of like the classic Hulk request to be left alone. And Joe kind of plays on it like, hey, well, Vector, all he really had to do was ask. But then again, like back in the day, whenever your Savage Hulk had asked to be left alone, nobody left him alone. So it almost feels like Joe is getting a bit of payback here for the big guy. But just after this, we then hear from Henry Gyrich, who's up in the Alpha Flight space station, and he's getting the update from Vapor on what just happened. And he's kind of like, okay, let me get this straight. So you guys had him and you just threw him away. And Vapor, she's like, well, not exactly like that. Vector blasted him and he went flying away, like back towards the Manhattan area. And so now Gyrich is flipping out like, what? You sent him towards a populated area? Like, he was weakened. How did you let this happen? And X-Ray just cuts him off like, well, something bulked him up again. Don't ask me what. Because with the Hulk being juiced up on cosmic rays, X-Ray's like, he's really not trying to admit his involvement in that part. But what I really like here is like with Gyrich trying to chew them out, like Vapor, she makes a very valid point. Because with Gyrich going on about, I hired you guys, you do what I say, and I expect you guys to deliver, and Vapor is just kind of like, look, we did our job, and had your containment crew been here any sooner, then Vector wouldn't be blind and Ironclad wouldn't have been maimed. And she tells Gyrich like, if anyone's to blame, it's him for moving too slow. And in response, Gyrich is kind of like, whatever, we'll spin it in our benefit in front of the media, but then also he has to take it to the next step, swallow his pride, and call the Avengers, who prior to this point we talked about before, he's given them a hard time, because in the past when he was assigned by the government to watch over the Avengers and report like irregular activities, he would also restrict them from traveling to certain areas, and at one point he even deemed them a threat to national security. But now, given the situation and circumstances, he's got to call them for help. But after this, going back to Manhattan, where we have Ween's Food and Drinks, which at this point in time is like your Len Wein Easter egg, which is another thing I love about this series, like the Easter eggs are everywhere. But when we get here, like Joe's at the bar and he's asking for a drink, and mainly in celebration for destroying the UFOs. But when he gets here, like the bartender and everyone else, like they are terrified of him. And I don't blame him, cause regular Hulk is scary as is, but now with the red eyes and the red glowing veins, like I just imagine that doesn't help him look more welcoming. But initially Joe just kind of plays off of it, and he makes a joke like off of the TV show Cheers, when the bartender's like, you're the Hulk, and Joe's like, well, I guess this is a place where everybody does know your name. But with Joe coming here and chasing everybody off, like he acknowledges that he forgot what that felt like, but then he also admits that here, like it doesn't feel as good as it used to. But after downing an entire pitcher of beer, Joe tosses it and he asks for something stronger, like some whiskey perhaps, so he can then think of his next move. And then Thor comes in like, pour me some mead, and in the way that the legends do it, served in the skulls of my enemies. And he just smashes Joe in the face with Mjolnir with little to no warning. Little warning, but little to no warning. But with Thor arriving here, like he is very much holding on to the last encounter from Immortal Hulk issue 7, when back at the time, Brian Banner had Bruce's body and he hit Thor one time, making him tap out. But even though at the time it was Brian Banner in Bruce's body, for one, neither then or now is Thor aware of that, and to him the Hulk is just the Hulk. But also since then up till now, Thor has also gotten his own upgrade with becoming the new king of Asgard. And Thor tells him like, before you surprised me, and I'll admit I was humbled. Knocking a tooth out will do that. But also he calls him out because he tells him like the Hulk has declared the world as his enemy, and because of that Thor will either beat him into submission or he can just accept Thor's mercy and just bow. And so now, like, just as a reminder, like declaring the world as their enemy, like that was Devil Hulk and Bruce Banner. Like Joe Fixit had nothing to do with that. And in response, Joe doesn't just clear it all up for him or even try to explain himself. And he tells Thor like, look, I'm the Hulk and the Hulk don't bow to nobody. Not skinny Hulk, not me when I'm stuck as Banner, not when all hope is lost, and not even when he was dead. And he punches Thor out into the streets and he tells him like, if you think I'm gonna start bowing now, you got something else coming, cause that's not gonna happen. And after this, when Joe steps outside, all the Avengers are there. But then also it's here we find out that Thor, he was just supposed to go inside and talk to the Hulk. But when Joe sees everybody out here like ready for round 2, he asks them like if they're gonna pull the same thing that they did in Iowa and just blow up Manhattan. And with saying this, like T'Challa lets him know like, look man, we can't just let everything you've been doing like just go unchecked. And even with your strength restored, it's 7 against 1. But also with this happening, like I also want to insert here, like recently with the Hulk getting knocked in and out of New York, that with this happening, this had recently gotten the attention of Betty Ross, who we had last seen around the time of Absolute Carnage, back when she had killed Bruce in order to make him Hulk out, and after that when he came back hulked out, she then flew him over to her father's body, but after that she had just taken off. And I'm pretty sure this is the last time that we had seen her aside from like the whole mix up with Zemnu when she initially left, but now with her back in Manhattan, she senses Gamma and this is what leads her back to the Hulk, who at this point in time is Joe Fixit in Savage Hulk. But when T'Challa tells him that it's 7 against 1, which really didn't make a difference last time, so I don't know what point that's supposed to make, but with T'Challa saying it's 7 against 1, it's here in front of the Avengers where Betty shows up and she tells them no, it's 7 against 2. But even with this happening, as we know, there's more on the way, with everyone coming from Shadow Base on their way to New York with the belief that the Hulk needs help. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below so we can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below or in Discord, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.